Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, joined once again by Anthony Torgrud.
What's up, guys? I set my alarm, I show up on time, and I don't make you wait.
No, Maddie, that's that's what that's about. It's just me and you. And you know what? We've got a fun game to recap, so the joke's on him. When I say fun, I mean things happened. Like compared to the Juve game, at least we've got things to talk about.
Yeah.
And obviously some managerial stuff to go through. And a game preview to do. Before we dive into this week's episode, thank you, as always, to our founding members on Substack: Des Windsor McGlynn, Ali Tareen, Tito, Matt Morris, Pullman, Joey Gawler, Kemin, MG and Mats, Luke Villano, Raul Escobar, Rajat, Carlo Fassi, and Nasser. Let's try and get that up to 20 before the start of next season, shall we? We really appreciate everybody who has become a founding member already, of course, but we're looking to grow that list and grow what we're doing over on the Substack. Speaking of which, I haven't prepared, so now it's time to get the Substack up and recall what's going on. Oh yeah, we had an article a few days ago which revealed some of the backstory behind Milan's pursuit of Julen Lopetegui, who is now going to become the new head coach of West Ham. Basically, the angle on that, and I would really strongly advise reading this, is that it was never as far along as it was made out by a certain newspaper in Italy. And all the stuff that's come out from the Spanish press about how we're a club that handles itself disgracefully and stuff like that is a bit dramatic. It was never as advanced as was said. All of the info is in there. Go check that out. The bonus podcast that we did last week was about the departures of Olivier Giroud and Simon Kjær, and if that leaves a bit of a leadership hole in this team. And it's an area that we've struggled in this season, showing character in the decisive moments. There was the newsletter centered around the strange finale to the season that we're witnessing, with the fan protests, Pioli being a dead man walking, and a lack of clarity from the club on what the direction is going to be. And yeah, you can go and try a week for free over on the Substack for all of our premium content. The game happened at San Siro on Sunday evening. Strange one, this, wasn't it? The game itself was odd, which we'll get into, but everything in the build-up to the game was also a little bit a bit strange. The Curva Sud announced that they would be protesting by not singing or chanting, displaying any flags, that kind of thing, what they normally do, basically, their normal repertoire. And then it became apparent that they were going to be doing a walkout in the 80th minute. So they missed a goal, is what it is. Or maybe they just saw it, actually.
No, I think they missed. We were up 3-2.
Right.
So
they've left at the right time.
Of the game we were winning, yeah.
I wonder if there's some blokes who still think we won 3-2. Anyway, yeah, so that was all a little bit strange. And also there's the fact that we're kind of sleepwalking towards the end of the season. We know Pioli's fate has been sealed. We don't know yet who's coming in to replace him. More on that to come. But it just leaves us in this sort of phase of limbo where we don't have too much to go on. We just want to hit fast forward until the end of the season. We dropped points in this, which kind of opened the door for Juve, but then Juve went and drew against Roma. So it's as you were. We're still 5 points ahead. We've got Champions League in the bag. On to the game then, I guess. Started shit.
I think every single team below us, or like not every single one, obviously, but competing for a European slot. I mean, we're officially top 5 now, so it doesn't matter. But I think everyone dropped, right? They all drew.
Atalanta won against Salernitana.
Oh, you're right, they did.
But
I mean, Roma because of that. Interesting. Technically, they did because they still have the Fiorentina game in hand, which I don't believe has even been rescheduled yet. So Serie A got to get on that as per usual. Point gained on Inter, most important part of the week. Comebacks on.
Here we go. That points deduction for them is going to hit like crack. We started this game really, really badly. Like it was a very, very sloppy performance in general. Entertaining. I got some heat for calling it entertaining in the match report, but I just meant from the perspective of at least there was 6 goals rather than 0. From a Milan fan's point of view, obviously we saw a lot more things that we have seen that have been symptomatic and emblematic of a difficult season. A lot of those same worrying signs came back up, and one of them happened very early on when Fikayo Tomori decided to try and make an intervention inside the area and just took out his man. Like, I don't have an argument with that penalty.
Yeah, it was clear as day. I was on the phone with my boss and immediately just went, fuck, Tomori gave away a penalty. And then he just kind of paused for a little bit and then continued talking about what he was talking about because he wasn't watching the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, come on, man. Already 3 minutes in, he gives away this penalty. And the review took way longer than it should have. I mean, it only took like 40 seconds, and that was way too long. It was so clearly a penalty. And the weirdest part is you could see almost like how premeditated it was. Like, Tomori's alone in the box. He's squatting down like in a linebacker position, getting ready. Like, he sees him. He knows where he's at. And then he goes outside on the outside, and Tomori just runs into him. And it's like, bro, what are you doing? Like, this has been a consistent thing with Tomori that bothers me. And think about some modern center backs in general is that, look, I'm not going to claim like I know any better than them, but I see a lot of them stepping in instead of just blocking, like just be bigger, predict the pass or something. It's like, it's not as simple as I'm making it sound, but time and time again, Tomori's giving away penalties, and it's because he's always doing the same thing. Same reason he gets red cards at random times of the season, because he's making the same challenges, and he's not 100% accurate every time, and this is a result of that. So, I don't know. It bothers me. I just I see why Southgate doesn't call him up sometimes.
Yeah, there is that. There are errors in his game. There have been errors in the performances of pretty much all the centre-backs who have spent a substantial amount of time out injured this season. Get it? Like, you can be rusty. You can take a bit of time to get back to 100% mentally as well as physically. We've seen that with Malik Chow, without a doubt. I think he's had the longest period of being a bit all over the place. And it doesn't help that we can't field a consistent back four from 1 week to the next. There are always changes in it. I would love to know how many different combinations of back four we have fielded this season, and how many times we've been able to keep it consistent from one game to the next. I think that really hurts. Like, the injuries, of course, are very problematic. But there's only so much you can do to offset that. You've got to name certain players in the team, and Teo Hernandez playing centre-back was out of pure necessity rather than anything else. But then when you get the group of defenders back fit, it still feels like it's been, chopping and changing all the time. And I think that does have an impact on the decision-making, on the understanding. Sportiello's behind them instead of Maignan,
That's what I was going to say. It's not even just the back four. I mean, we've had 4 different goalkeepers this season. Maignan, Morante, Sportiello, and Giroud. We've had too many different people between the sticks. It's unsustainable.
Yeah, and another thing that pissed me off about the penalties, that he was going nowhere. It's a centre-back for a start. It was the right-sided centre-back, Voliaco, I think, he nudged it to the outside, so he's going to the byline. You should probably know that he's an outside centre-back and he ain't going to provide a quality cutback or anything. Even so, you've got to back the other centre-back or the other, whoever it is tracking a man, to block that ball going anywhere dangerously. Like, then it's not your problem anymore. But instead, he makes a challenge that, it didn't need to be made. He wasn't going anywhere dangerous. And as I say, symptomatic of a lot of the defensive problems we've had this season. Retegui took the penalty well. That's it. We're 1-0 down. And then the atmosphere was quite eerie, to be honest, because obviously the fans weren't chanting or anything. All you could hear was the Genoa fans up in the away end. You could feel the misplaced passes and the lack of pace in our play sort of getting people more and more wound up. Honestly, it felt like a throwback to the mid-2010s, when things was pretty toxic. We did get our goal back just before half-time. This was quite a nice one, to be fair. Good work by Chukwueze, crossing, header from Florenzi. I don't know what he's doing on the penalty spot, but...
That was another part, also kind of bothered me. Why is our right back the most center person, the most forward person? He's between the keeper and the penalty spot. Not where Giroud is. He should have been there, I'm happy, obviously, we scored. Without that goal, we don't win, so... Or I guess we didn't win anyways. We don't draw.
We get nothing, yeah.
We fucking lose. but still, it's like, what are we coaching these guys?
Mm.
Everything. The story of this game was our defenders, right? Like, 2 of them scored goals. 3 of them did, if you count Chiao's own goal, which was also more Tomori's fault than Chiao, because you see Tomori try to clear it and it deflects off of
Yeah.
Chiao and in. Which another, like, that own goal should never happen, but we'll get to that. But yeah, defender gives away a penalty early on. Defenders scoring headers, a short defender, by the way, too. Like,
Mm.
nothing about that goal made any sense. And then obviously defender error on the not Retegi goal, the Ekuban goal, the header.
Mm.
You just watch it go over you. Like, oh, okay, and then he just heads it in, and then the own goal, and Gabia had a header as well. It was like all defenders. No one was doing anything, and ironically, this was the week that we fielded our most attack heavy front four.
Mm.
Outside of
Yeah.
Giroud, who, yes, got a goal, but was dog shit awful the rest of the game. He had no business being up there, but and
Yeah.
we'll
Mr.
get
Big
to that. I
Chance.
don't know if you want to keep going on the Florenzi moment or not, but
No, I just think like it can happen that way. If you give we know that Pioli gives the fullbacks some flexibility, allows them to be a bit fluid positionally, move inside, stuff like that. Not to the extent of getting so deep into the box, I don't think, but it can happen that way that you score a goal with a runner that's not expected because so Genoa have prepared to pick up certain men when we build an attack and it can sometimes be the surprise man who scores. But it was a bizarre goal. Like I couldn't believe it when it was Florenzi who was wheeling away in celebration. But fair play to him. I actually think he was one of the players that could hold their heads up after this because obviously he whipped in the corner for the second goal for us as well. So he got an assist to his name. But yeah, the Ekuban goal was ridiculous. Like it was out of nowhere, really. It was out of nothing. It wasn't a particularly dangerous moment. Gabia gets beat in the air by a player who I remember as being a flop for Leeds. So, but then they retake the
in this
lead.
game too. I don't like that guy. He went down on a no contact challenge from Tomori, and then was clutching his calf the whole time, screaming, rolling around. It's like the 52nd minute, and they're already time wasting. And he's rolling around, rolling around, rolling around, wastes like a minute and a half, almost 2 minutes a game, and then gets up and immediately sprints full speed, blowing past everyone. It's like, really? You put on this big show about how hurt you were, and now all of a sudden you're Usain Bolt? I won't say the rest of that joke that I put in the chat, but
It was a good one. That it did make me chuckle. Also, the guy who got the assist for that was Valiaco again. So
there you go.
he hurt us. It'd be fair to say
Which
he was a bit of a
Adair said
nightmare.
is not a real name or whatever he said. So
I should have bet
it's
on
an
him to
actual
score
word.
at that point. I should have bet on him to score at the point where he said he's not a real player. 67th minute. So before we equalise for the second time, Leao leaves the field to a rather interesting reaction. It would be fair to say, and by that I mean he got a mix of less so claps and more so jeers. He made his way around the pitch and he went straight down the tunnel to the changing room. Thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't think the boos were directed towards Leao. I thought they were directed towards Pioli for taking Leao off. Because, at least from what I saw and what I felt personally, everyone wanted Okafor to start over Giroud. That was the original probable lineup from Sky earlier in the week. And then, like 2 days prior, they're like, is Giroud? Pioli said Giroud. And it's like, of course it is. And then Giroud's missing sitter after sitter. He's awful. He's just having one of those games that he's had for the last few months. You see Okafor coming on off the bench, and you go, okay, finally, here we go. This is what we need. This is what we expect. And then you see that 10 on the substitution board. And everyone's thinking, what the fuck? Like, Leao's at least been productive. Yeah, he's blanked, but everyone blanked at this point outside of 2 defenders. It made no sense for Giroud to get another full 90. And immediately after he came on, Leao hadn't even finished walking to the tunnel at this point. Okafor makes a run. It's a 2v1. Okafor and Giroud against the goalkeeper. He squares it to Giroud, who's about the penalty box, in between the penalty box and the top of the box, I'd say. and he just whiffs the shot. He misses the ball, and it's like, what?
I
This
don't know
is the
what he was
guy.
trying to. I think what he was trying to do was lift it over the keeper because the keeper had come out pretty quickly. Also, I want to say, even though he let in 3, Josep Martinez for Genoa was really, really
Really
good
good.
in net, especially in the first half. He made some great stops. He might be someone that we could look at if Maignan decides he wants to move on this summer or whatever. They signed him from Leipzig. But yeah, he comes out quickly off his line. There isn't a. I don't think this is an absolute clear cut chance like when he missed from 3 yards and hit the bar. I think this is a little bit difficult in the sense that he got to react quickly to a man coming at him. But a centre forward with his experience should know that, you know, when the ball's coming into his path, he takes the first touch. He decides what happens then. So he can knock it to the side of the keeper and try draw the challenge, get a penalty, whatever it might be. He can take the shot on first time. If it gets saved, then we say, oh, well, you know, good stop or whatever. And instead, he takes the totally wrong decision and like ends up sort of, as you say, whiffing at it, and it goes out for a goal kick.
That's the part that
Really
upsets
strange.
me. It's not like, I think probably an easier chance than not, but I agree. And keeper had already come out, so there's a little bit of pressure. But we're talking about France's all-time top goal scorer. We're talking about a World Cup champion. We're talking about a Champions League winner. We're talking about a guy who's won league titles in multiple leagues around Europe. Like, you should be able to, at the very least, get that shot off. There's no
Yeah.
reason that your reaction time should be that far behind. And that just shows you age, where he's at, and the fact that fans have seen that for a year and a half, but the manager hasn't. It's like, come on. Like, at this point, we're playing for nothing. You know, the only thing we could achieve at this point is a Super Cup semifinal berth,
Yeah.
whatever. That I don't think anyone's really too fussed about it. And it's like, we're still not gonna try anything different. You're gonna stick to the same thing that has kept us on a now 6-game winless run
Yeah.
after going 7 unbeaten, which is hilarious because the 7 we went unbeaten, or 7-game winning streak, nobody felt like we looked good in those games.
No.
And we looked the exact same in this 6-game winless run as we did in the 7-game winning streak. And that just shows you how heavily we rely on individual performances. And when you have a day where Giroud's doing shit like this, where Tomori's giving away these dumb penalties, where Xiao's making these dumb mistakes, where Leao's not finding the back of the net, this is what happens. And it's going to happen time and time again until we get a real game plan and we get people who are going to stick to it because they believe in it. And that's just not what we have anymore. You know, I think they did believe in whatever Pioli ball is. The season we won the Scudetto, we were killers. We were ruthless. And then the following season, I guess last season, we started off the same way. We did start off as killers. As soon as it went wrong, we lost it, you know? So I don't know if it's like where we're at now. Is it a point where we have to rip up everything, start over? Is it these players are now lost causes in Milan and they got to look for greener pastures and we need to rebuild? Or is it as simple as getting a new guy who's going to teach them some fresh tactics and make them believe again? I don't know. But
Well, yeah. Thankfully, we don't have to make those decisions. But the Curver put out some message in like a fanzine. I say fanzine. I think they handed it out before the game, basically, and it was a long statement. It's on the website. You can read it. But one of the lines that stuck out was, "Why does it feel like we've lost everything in 2 years?" And I think that is correct. Like the Scudetto, we all agree should have been a launching pad to ideally a period of domestic dominance, or if not, like more trophies. You know, that should have been the aim from that point onwards. You can argue we won it too quickly, whatever, for the phase that we were at in our project, but we won it on merit. And then, you know, from that point onwards, we have a semi-final of the Champions League to show, which ended in arguably the worst possible circumstances. And this season has been pretty damn miserable, you know. And I think it was a statement that kind of put into perspective. It does feel like we've regressed and fallen, and that shouldn't be the case. Is it as easy as just bringing in a head coach? I don't think so. I've always said that it's more than that. You know, we need to see more from the supposed leaders in this team, and as the weeks go on, as you say, 6-game winless run now, it's very clear that they've abandoned us in a time of need. And at the it can't help when they, if they scroll social media or they see the papers and there's no clarity about the direction that the club is going in terms of the head coach that we're going to sign. We're linked with a different number 9 every week. There's a corporate investigation going on into the sale of the club. None of that can help because it creates a lot of external noise, which is hard to shut off. But I thought that this was the whole point of having like Ibra back. I'm not saying he's a problem like some have made out, but I thought we had a strong and cohesive group that were able to get through things like this, because we know that the media have run campaigns to try and destabilize the club before, and we've managed to fight through it. And now it just doesn't feel like that same collective spirit is there. And whatever the root causes are for the evaporation of that is something that they probably all need to look at each other in the dressing room and decide. But a new head coach will come in, and with that, new staff, new ideas, new energy, hopefully some signings in the summer that will raise the level of the squad. But essentially, feeding back to the Genoa game, shit like this can't happen. It was a clusterfuck again. That being said, 2-1 down to 3-2 up. Gabia scored a nice header. Giroud finally got a goal. That was, for the one that he missed that was easier, that was quite a nice volley from Giroud.
Yeah,
yes,
it was.
he probably should score it, but good technique.
Oh, and it shows you just exactly who Giroud is. The guy has not scored a goal from open play with his foot that wasn't a first-time shot all season. I might be wrong on that, but I can't remember anything that wasn't a header, a penalty, or a volley. Like if you ask him to take a touch on the ball and then shoot, it's not going to happen. He just doesn't do it. It's very odd.
Yeah.
But
That's
we complain. It was a beautiful goal. I did kind of secretly wish it was offside so that I didn't have to say, go Giroud after attacking him for 82 minutes at this point, or however long it was.
Yeah,
76.
70 odd, yeah.
Yeah.
And nice cross from Pulisic as well. Got to say that.
Oh, it was Pulisic. Okay, cool.
It was, yeah.
I didn't even look at who was the assister on any of them, to be honest with you. So.
Yeah, and then a few minutes later, about 10 minutes later, is it something like that? We are unable to hang on because a substitution was made. He made the decision to go to a back 5, I think, to try and protect what we had. I don't have any problem with that as a principle, but other things have to follow, because when you're taking somebody out in the middle of the park and you're putting an extra man at the back, you are leaving that part of the field open for Genoa to get a period of possession and try and get their way back into the game. And it was obvious that was happening as soon as the change was made. A big chasm opened up between the attack, who were trying to counter and get that final goal to kill the game off, and the defence, who all of a sudden were under pressure. You've got 5 defenders on the field, and yet the way that the goal happened for the 3-3 was, unacceptable.
Yeah, and again, this comes back to criticism of Pioli, because he's done this a lot. Football is always played within the space. Wherever you have space, that's where you're aiming. That's where you're dribbling to. That's where you work towards, because that's where you could do things. You're not going to pick, if you have an option between going right into 3 defenders or left into a giant open hole. We know where you're going every single time. That's why we struggle against teams, even after they get red cards, because they know how to fill that gap. They make sure that they don't leave that big of space. And Pioli's strategy, at least the second half of this season, has been delete all the people in the midfield.
Yeah.
Put this giant hole there, and then put more people either in the back or in the front. And when you put them all in the front, and then there's no one in the back, or there's no one in the middle, and the same amount of people in the back, then the back line becomes your front line. The back line of your defense should be the last line. It is not that complex. The front people should defend first, then the middle people, then the back people. If you get rid of the middle, now the back people have to move up one, and there's no one behind them to protect them. You got the goalkeeper, but when you're using your second string goalkeeper, maybe this isn't the best idea. We've always struggled with number superiority, and we've actually seen it multiple times over Pioli's tenure when he has brought on an extra defender and taken off a midfielder to defend a lead where we've conceded. It's happened quite a few times with him. Because maybe we don't train with 3 at the back or a 5-man back line, and it confuses the players because
I think
now they're
yeah.
being told to do something different and they haven't drilled that. They don't know what they're supposed to do. They just know that this is the space I normally occupy. And then the guy who comes on says, well, that's where I normally occupy. Now we're both here. So let's both just stand in the same area. And then you leave a giant hole. And it's that hole leads to the goal. So
it does. It's a mess. It's a mess, and it cost us 2 points. I've seen it compared to the Bologna game where it looked like we'd sort of got out of jail with the goal, and we were unable to hang on because it was a simple low cross that caused quite a few problems, and then a back post dragged down by Terracciano in that case. And in this case, yeah, again, if you're committing to defending the lead, then you've got to do it. You've just got to do it, and I agree with everything you've said. I think the subs caused confusion, and the way that the goal went in was just, it was unacceptable, and that was it. After the game, I didn't really feel much emotion. I didn't feel. I think if it had been a game in the first half of the season, you're probably pointing at it, raging and saying this is exactly why we won't go on to challenge for the league title and stuff like that. But where we're at now, we kind of know the cards that we've got to play, and it is what it is. Get this season over and done with. Top and flop. I go Florenzi for top. You got to go.
That's what I was thinking too. Go and assist, but
I know he's part of a defence that struggled, but I can't think of anything that he specifically was at fault for it. Or, funnily enough, Gilardino, the Genoa manager, who I think has done a good job this season, he came out after the game speaking to DAZN, and he said something along the lines of, we targeted Teo and Leao's side. Like, we thought we could get some joy down that right flank, our left flank.
Yeah.
And I thought, we know that teams do that. I have done that in the past. I think for a manager to come out and so openly say we highlighted a deficiency in this team and it went exactly as we thought because the goals came down that side. Teo and Leao were not at the races, at all. Okafor's position was interesting when he came on for Leao as well because what he actually created was down the right side. When he went over and that cut back for Giroud. So I don't really know what to make of that. But yeah, I'll say Florenzi.
Yeah, I'm looking at Florenzi as well. I'm just going over his stats here to see if there was anything glaring that I don't recall. He actually did really well on everything. 94% pass accuracy. Granted, a lot of them are back passes as the right back on our team. But one thing I do find really interesting, 0 out of 0 tackles won. He didn't take a single challenge the whole game. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm kind of undecided on that. But I'll go with Florenzi, I guess, for our top.
Yeah, and for my flop, I'm going to have to, unfortunately, dig out my compatriot Tomori. He set the tone for a disastrous defensive display by making that error early on. And as you say, I think second goal, I say it's more so Gabia that gets beat. And then for the final goal, he should do better, as should Chow, to be honest. You've got 2 men surrounding Retegui, and yet the ball ends up in the back of the net. It's not good enough.
And I think that's the thing that goes back to what I was just saying about they don't understand where to be, because if one of them isn't there, Tomori clears it, But
The
because
confusion.
they're side by side, then the ball bounces into Chow and out. And in that case, then you're wondering, does Tomori not see the giant man right next to him? Why are you trying to clear it straight through his body? He's not Danny Phantom. The ball's going to hit him. Clear it the other direction. I know that's easier said than done in motion too, but it's decision making on everyone's parts. So I guess I got to pick Tomori as well, though. But honorable mention for Pioli. I know that's who Madison would have picked. Rest in peace, Madison.
R.I.P. Madison. I just went on the Serie A official website here because they produce a match report and it's pretty detailed. It has all the touches and where they were in each zone and stuff like that, because I wanted to see if Florenzi didn't make a tackle because he didn't have to. In his particular right-back area of the pitch, which is obviously the bottom right quadrant, Genoa had 2 touches all game, according to this. Then in the one further forward, they had 12. But in general, on the right side, from the penalty area outwards, they had 8 touches all game. Whereas on the left side, there was 12 plus 17, and then there was 27 over on Teo's left back position and 13 just inside where there was the gap in the midfield. So it shows that they were targeting it, and they got a lot of joy doing it.
I wonder if they being Teo and Leao just like didn't anticipate the amount of pressure, and that's why they kind of crumbled under it. But
do you know what?
we know they're better players, so why are they unable? It's weird.
I think that they probably, when you're planning for a game at home against a mid-table side like Genoa, we were perhaps thinking that we would spend a lot more time on the attack than what we actually did. Don't get me wrong, we had our periods where we were well on top in the game, but I have to tip my cap to Genoa and Gilardino and say fair play for coming and giving us a game, you know, and saying, well, we'll attack as well. Because so many teams come and just try and make it difficult for us, and they look to hit on the counter and stuff like that. They actually played some good stuff at times, and they had a clear plan about how they were going to hurt us. And I think that bodes well for them, and it bodes well for Gilardino as a young coach. Like I think Pioli is now getting out coached nearly every week, and it's by blokes who are learning on the job. You know,
well, exactly. Yeah, you look at these comments saying, "Oh yeah, we game planned and targeted Teo and Leao," and then De Rossi saying, "Yeah, just watch the Derby defeats and knew what to do." And you're seeing all these other coaches specifically game plan methods to defeat us, and then Pioli's thing, no matter who he's playing, no matter what the formation is just we're going to do what we do and hope for the best. And like football is a game of chess. You know, you have to be prepared for what your opponent's going to do. You can't just brute force win everything. It's going to happen against some teams. Might do it against the Salernitana, but I mean, if it's not working against a team like Genoa in mid-table, who's it going to work against at the top?
Yeah, especially a Genoa team that's quite open and up for the battle. You know, that should be a game that plays into our hands, and yet we've emerged with a 3-3 draw after we found it difficult to beat them away as well. It took a late Pulisic winner in that game, and a lot of drama towards the end. Let's move on then. Cagliari Preview. It's our penultimate home game of the season. That's correct.
Yep. Yeah.
We've got
the
2
final
home
game
games
is
in a
also
row.
a home game when we have an away after this one.
So yeah, we've got Cagliari. Where are they in the league? That's
what I was looking right now. They're 15th.
Okay, so they're going to stay up then. Yeah.
Maybe not. I mean, they're only 3 points clear of relegation, so.
Okay.
So they're fighting. They're going to beat us.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, three above Udinese, who occupy the last relegation place at the moment, third bottom. You know what I mean? Then Empoli are the one just outside, and they're on 32 points. Looking at the fixtures, last 3 fixtures, Empoli have Lazio and Roma to play, and Udinese. That's going to be a massive game. Penultimate game of the season for them is Empoli Udinese. Cagliari have us, and then they have Sassuolo, which is another big one, and they have Fiorentina. So I think they're looking at a situation where they can probably afford to lose to us, to be honest, but still, they'd rather get something to ease their worries. Verona are not clear of it either yet. They're 4 points above the relegation zone. I think Lecce are fine. Frosinone have to play Inter, Monza, and Udinese. So Udinese play Empoli and Frosinone.
Lecce might not be fine, man, because they play Atalanta, Napoli, and Udinese. They could drop in there. They might.
Oh, they'll be fine. They'll beat Napoli.
Yeah, Napoli.
Yes. So Cagliari, yeah. I, at the moment, I would say that 3-point gap, they should be okay. If it were 1 point, then I'd be a little bit more worried for them. But
it'll be interesting. I could see us dropping points here, just basing it on form. Also, if we were to lose this game, maybe that puts the nail in the coffin for Udinese and Sassuolo, and that's a victory for me. You know, because we're how many points clear are we of third? Like 5 points clear.
5.
We could just throw this one, you know, end them, and it's all good.
Yeah, Ranieri is in charge of Cagliari, of course. I kind of want them to go down because of obviously what's happened in the past with racial incidents and whatnot. I do not think that they are a very nice fan base. And the flip side to that is we seem to beat them every single time that we play them. We've got like a really good record against them. We've won something like 12 out of the last 13, something like that. Yeah, interesting
Pioli
one.
loves to break a record. So.
He certainly does. They've got players, right? Nandes, who was highly rated at one point, his career kind of fell away a little bit. Lapadula is obviously somebody that we know. Jakub Jankto spent a lot of time in Syria. They've got Shemurdov from Roma, Patania, who's on loan from Monza, Pavoletti, feels like he's been there ages. Yerry Mina, who was at Everton, Zito Lavumbo, who caused us some problems in the first game. They've got some names. I'm not that surprised that they're down there because they seem to struggle every time they get back into Serie A. But yeah, let's not give them a helping hand. Let's beat them. With the lineup, there's no need to keep starting Olivier Giroud. Let's stop that. Let's put Okafor in there. Let's play Chukwueze, Pulisic, and Leao again. I think that's what we should do. Excuse me. It's obviously not confirmed if Loftus-Cheek will be back, but I don't think he will be. Jovic, we'll see. Maybe news will come out that he's fit and could start the game. Then in the back four, I guess Calabria will serve this suspension, so he'll probably come back in. Tamori and Gabia is probably our best centre-back pairing at the moment. Teo left back, and I think Maignan will miss this one as well as a bit of a precaution. Yeah.
He's going to go out the rest of the season, I thought, right?
Maignan?
Yeah.
No, he's supposed to be coming back for the last two. He will probably want that as well because the Euros are around the corner. So he could do with some game time before the first game there. Although I think actually the France have a couple of friendlies prior to the tournament. So, but yeah, I think we win. I do think that we win this one. I'll say 2-0.
2-2. I don't see it. I just don't see it. I think the form we're in right now is so reminiscent of last January and last March that it's like, I think the players have kind of packed it up already. I think Pioli knows that he's done. The players know he's done. The fans know he's done. I just don't think the motivation's there anymore. I think if we win a game the rest of the season, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, who have we got after this? Have we got Verona to play still?
I don't know. I think they're all winnable games on paper, but
yeah.
Torino and Salernitana.
Oh,
Salernitana will beat. I hope.
Torino we won't beat. Definitely.
Torino will be a 0-0.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have a 0 goal difference. That's crazy at this point in the season.
Let's move on then. Do some talking points. So the big one is that we have another manager in pole position to take over from Pioli at the end of the season, and it's Sergio Conceição. It might. I think that's how you say it.
I thought it was Conceição.
Conceição. That could.
Yeah, because I think it has a squiggly line underneath the C, which makes
Right.
it sound like an S. But I genuinely don't know. I don't speak Portuguese. Never have. Probably never will.
Can't rule it out.
Yeah, we'll see. Dated a Brazilian girl once, so I heard words, but I don't know.
Mostly swear words, I imagine.
Words.
What?
Couldn't tell you what they meant.
Just some words. How do you feel about this?
I'm for it. I know you and I were more for Amorim, but Conceição is equally, if not better. In terms of trophies, he's won a lot in Portugal. Obviously, he didn't win anything this year. He hasn't had the best season, but that's okay. Everyone's allowed a bad year except for Pioli. How dare he? And yeah, I think he's a good manager. He would actually be the first manager we've appointed with multiple trophies, going all the way back. Even Ancelotti didn't have the number of trophies. Allegri hadn't fuck all. Trying to think who else won a lot of trophies. Saki didn't have any trophies before. Like, this would genuinely be our most prolific managerial signing ever as a club. And fact check me, I didn't confirm that or not. I'm just going off of vibes here. So
Which is all we can do.
it's all I ever do, and the comments let me know. They still get mad though, but yeah, I think he'd be a good signing. So all for it.
Yeah, I like it. I think when we did that bonus podcast, go check it out if you haven't already, where we kind of pitched our picks for who we would like to be the head coach. I put forward Amorim, and I think there's a lot of overlap between him as a profile and between Sergio. I think he's been at Porto for a while now. I think it's 7 years. He's won 3 league titles. He's won 3 cups. Plus a League Cup, and then I think like Super Cups as well. I'm not really familiar with what all the different titles mean, but he's won quite a few major honours. This season they've finished a fair bit behind Sporting, who celebrated winning the league title. But I think the points remain the same in that I think the styles translate quite well between the leagues, especially in European competitions. You see Portuguese teams punch above their weight in Europe quite regularly. I saw Porto a couple of times in the Champions League, but then saw them twice up close on TV. But watched it more focused when they played Arsenal over 2 legs, and they won the first leg 1-0, and they lost on penalties. But they were a really, really good match for Arsenal over the 2 legs.
They've made it decently far in the Champions League pretty consistently, especially given look, it's Porto, you can't expect them to be beating Man City, but I'm trying to find it because I feel like they were quarterfinals last year, right?
They've been a regular fixture in the knockout stages of the Champions League. It feels
exactly,
yeah. Obviously that season that we returned to the Champions League 2021-22, and we got Liverpool, Atletico Madrid, and Porto, and everybody was sort of saying, "Well, we'll beat Porto," and I was thinking, nah, because they're a seasoned European team now. Like they're in this competition almost every single season. They've got a lot of players that know exactly what it means to play in it. They've got a manager who has gained experience coaching in it. It's like Arsenal. Like they've been better than Bayern Munich this season without a doubt. But they've gone out because I think that in Europe it takes something a little bit different. But the positive side with Porto over the last few years under Sergio's tenure is that they've won domestically as well. So they've clearly shown an ability to be able to balance the competitions. Now, I don't think that the Portuguese league is as hard as Serie A, for example, in terms of the quality of opponents that you'd face. But I think you require, I can't remember what I said on the bonus pod, but it's like you've got to be a mix of technically good, but also physically up for the battle and quite intense. And I think that you see the best of Conceição's style in European competitions. Like they press hard, they make it really difficult for you. They play the ball forward quickly. They try and spin you around. Porto have brought through some players who have gone on to do excellent things. They've got Evan Nielsen at the moment. They have Luis Diaz, who went on to Liverpool. Taremi, who's going to Inter. They Pepe, who's gone back there. They've got a lot of players who are maybe players that we should be taking a look at. I don't know, but I think he fits that side of it as well. Like he's clearly shown an ability to be able to develop young players that come through the academy and such. I think he ticks a lot of boxes for us. We just need to know if he's definitely available, because there's the chaos of Portuguese club politics whereby he signed a renewal under the previous president, who then got voted out like a day later. So now that renewal is apparently null and void, or they need to speak about it because Andre Villas-Boas, formerly of Spurs and Zenit, among other clubs, is now the president of Porto. So apparently there's going to be a meeting today or tomorrow to decide whether they can move forward together or whether he's going to activate a break clause in it and then would be able to join us. He's got a past at Lazio and Inter, so he speaks Italian fluently. And not bothered, like he was only there for a minute, at Inter, for example. So our current manager's a big Interista, so I'm not too bothered about that side of things. Yeah. I'm for it, man. I think this would be a good. I also think it'd be a good sign as well that we still got quite a lot of pull I think
Mhm.
other teams around Europe, because Conceição has been linked with other jobs in the Premier League as well, I think others would sort of take note and say, that's quite an ambitious appointment from them.
Yeah.
Rather than going for... Fonseca also ticks a lot of boxes, but I just have him that tier below because he didn't really do it in Serie A, albeit he inherited a mess under Monchi, the sporting director at Roma. But also like Lille, I think they're fourth in Liga, and last night, for example, they were 3-1 up with about 10 minutes to go against Lyon and lost 4-3. I don't really want another manager who's prone to collapses like that. So I just have him that little tier below Conceição because of the European experience that he's managed to and he's young. He's still young. That's the thing. He is 49 years of age. So, we'd be building around somebody who's going to be here for the foreseeable, hopefully. And I hope that this one comes true. We've seen so many links. We've had Lopetegui, who's now ended up at West Ham, and like Sarri's come up. Conte's never gone away, but doesn't seem to be a realistic target. Thiago Motta, who may or may not join Juventus. Feels like this guy should have been up there all along, and maybe we should have gone for him from the start. But yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. But I would feel confident building a future around him, in terms of the players that he wants to bring in and stuff like that, which I think is a key factor.
When a manager's at a club long term, you anticipate each season to be building upon the last. With Pioli, we've seen stagnation from start to finish. Obviously highs and lows in each one, but it's been relatively the same no matter what season. I don't think it would be that with Conceição. I don't have anything to base that on because I don't watch the Portuguese league, but looking at the number of trophies he's won there in his tenure, it shows that he's always competing. And yes, it's a 3-team league, but is Serie A not? Like
yeah. I actually see that as a bonus, like it being a 3-team league, because they sort of go into each season there with the other two obviously being Benfica and Sporting, and it being a bit open. So like you've got to be on your game every season because every one of those teams' fan bases are expecting them to win it and beat their two rivals to it. And if they don't, then it has repercussions. Like this season, I can't imagine it's gone down very well that Sporting are going to win the league by, I think like
20 points, something like that.
a fair amount of points, yeah. So yeah, I think it's a benefit almost having that really competitive mentality and games at that level where winning or losing could be the difference between you winning the title and not, because you win in all your other games. So it's those head-to-head games that become so crucial, and we have been so shit in the big games this season and sort of into last season as well. Let's do some questions and then we shall wrap up this week. Hassan asks, the loss of Maldini to me was the beginning of this mess. Maldini is the glue for this management, and you can already see a split between Ibra, brackets, a man who knows the game, and the management, brackets, who know business only, in my opinion. Who do you think is the unifying factor now? A strong coach?
That was the end of it?
That was the end of it.
Yeah, I guess it would be a coach. I mean, I completely disagree with them, to be honest. I don't think Maldini was the glue. I think he obviously had charisma and was a nice face to have around the club. But look, I'm picking last summer over any of Maldini's windows. I know that's going to cause a lot of fire, especially with the Italians in the comments. But the reality is, goals speak for themselves. So I'm happy with the windows we've had. Do I agree with every decision they've made? No, of course not. I think Pioli should have been gone. But you look at it the way it happened when Redbird came in the first season, no changes were made. We're going to let the existing people stay. We're going to see how it runs. And they did that. And then last season happened. And remember, everyone was out the door, both of them, Maldini and Pioli. Now, no one knows what happened in that conversation. But one person was given an extra year and one person wasn't. So in my little fan fiction, I'm saying Pioli did what he had to do to save his job, and he put the blame on Maldini. He said, I didn't get the players I wanted, which is something he did say publicly. I didn't get the players I wanted. I didn't get, the support I needed, blah, blah, blah. Let me prove that I could do it. It was Maldini's fault. Cardinale. Okay, sure. Maldini sacked. There's proof the transfer window was bad. They got CDK. He was a flop. They didn't get anything else. Origi. There was proof to back that. So Maldini left. Pioli was given more control, more say in the transfer market. He wanted to change formations. 4 games in, he went back on all that, and it's been the same season, same mess. So, should he have been sacked sooner? Yeah, I agree. But I also don't have an issue with the way it went down because I can see the way it went down. You know, it makes sense to me. It adds up. So, I think everyone was given their fair shot, and they failed, and now they're being replaced.
Yeah, I think you can split it into. Maldini was the technical director, so he had the final say on signings and probably orchestrated a lot of the strategy for how we moved in the transfer window. That was one part of his job, and then we know that the other part of his job was being close to the team, especially in difficult moments. But I think him being at Milanello every day and sort of watching on the training, chatting with the leaders of the squad, I think that part is something that we've lost. You know, whatever you think of him as a director, I think we have lost that influence in and around. There's been reports this season that before Ibra came back, the directors were just never there. You wouldn't see Ferlani stood watching training. You wouldn't see Moncada there, probably because they're busy doing other things. You know, they can't always be available to go and sit and watch training on a bench from the sidelines, you know, and invite their mates along, like Maldini was sat with Pirlo watching it and stuff like that. But I do think, regardless of what you think, I think we have lost that. We have lost that figure to be. I'll give you an example, right? So when we log on to cover games, me and Isaac cover the pre-match comments that come out. There's normally a player that will speak, and then it was always Maldini or Massara that came out before the game and spoke. And they would be asked questions about a wide range of things, the game that was about to come, and then, of course, the other topics at the club, like confidence in Pioli, any truth in the rumour linking you with this player, that kind of thing. He was a media figurehead to the club, and I think that's important as well, because now we have no idea who's going to speak, and if somebody does speak, it's usually Ferlani, who his comments have baffled me at times, to be honest. He said some interesting things, but he definitely speaks better than Scaroni, who is, you know, I don't know any fans really that A, take what he says at face value, and B, actually really like him as a bloke, to be honest. You know, I know that sounds personal, I don't know what he's like and stuff, but having them two go up in front of the cameras just has a totally different vibe to it than when Maldini was going up and answering the questions. Now, again, I think it's important to emphasize the split between his job as a director, which I think he did badly in that last summer window that he got, and the stats prove it, versus the almost ambassadorial side of things, you know. So I think we are missing that presence a bit. Could a new head coach be unifying in that sense? Yes. I think we need to see more from the leaders of the club, though. I think they need to answer more to things. I think the Curver and those who have been vocal on social media demanding more clarity and to be more ambitious when declaring the aims for the season, that kind of thing. I think they've got a point, and I would like to see that as well. But yeah, I don't think Maldini leaving necessarily resulted in an absolute tyre fire. I just think there are aspects of his character that we are lacking a little bit now. Michael Gambino asks, reports now saying 60 to 70 mil for Xerxes. With his goals, is that the right investment, or would you go for Jonathan David plus Bongiorno for the same amount? As an example, how you could spend the money.
I mean, yeah, I don't think Xerxes is worth that price. Would he be a huge immediate upgrade? Yeah, definitely. But at 70 mil, I mean, he's right. Like, I'm not a David fan. I've made that very clear. But David plus Buongiorno for the same price as just Xerxes fills a lot more holes. So I wouldn't spend the 60, 70 on Xerxes if I had the option to do it. I know Gyökeres was also, they were saying, or no, Benjamin Sesko, his clause rises and it could potentially be 75. I think that's too much too. You know, I think the 35, 40, maybe 50 at most is where we should be looking for a striker. It's hard because we want a guy that could put in 20 goals a season. A 20 goal a season striker nowadays is just worth way too much money, way more than Milan's willing to spend. So I think we're going to look for someone who is young, promising, probably scored between 15 to 20 goals this season, and they're going to go with it from there. I also wouldn't be surprised if we just activate Garassi's clause. He's banged in a bunch of goals. He's
17
older. It's his only good season, or at least his prolific. So he's a bigger risk than the others, but at 15 mil, that's a risk you're willing to take. 70 mil is a risk they're not willing to take.
Yeah, I mean, anything north of technically, Rafael Leao is our most expensive ever signing because it's now 49.5 mil because of the fine money, but we know that we actually paid 30 and some complications were what made that rise. But newsflash, and this isn't aimed at you or the person asking the question, a good striker is going to cost us a lot of money. Like we talk about Giroud and we think, well, he's not much to replace. He's garbage now and he's totally past it. Well, he's got 14 goals this season. And that's more than Xerxes. Like that, that's the mad thing about it. And I think, for example, a Gyökeres or Gyökeres, Isaac will probably call me out on the pronunciation. He is way past what we can afford now. He's got 100 mil release clause as it is, but he scored something like 39 goals this season. He's absolutely flying. So then you're sort of moving down into the tier of like Xerxes at 65, 70. I don't think it's a particularly wise investment because of how big a gamble it is compared to the amount of goals that he scored. But then that sort of then translates on to like Santiago Jimenez would cost an awful lot of money, but he's only scored goals in the Dutch league. Garassi would be cheaper, and he scored a lot of goals this season, but he's also a fair bit older, as you said, and this is his first good season. Jonathan David would be a little bit cheaper because of his contract situation, but there are doubts about whether he could play up front on his own and what systems he's best for. Could he do it outside Liga? Like, there is an inherent gamble with every single striker that we've been linked with. I'd also include Sesko in that because he hasn't started that many games in the league this season because they invested in Openda, who was the guy that we wanted, and he's kept him out of the team in most of the big games for Leipzig this season. So nobody is a sure bet. There's not a single player that we've been linked with where I look at and I go, that guy's going to give us 25 next season. Or certainly not that we can afford, Like, we were linked by a bad source, I won't say who, with Ollie Watkins at Aston Villa. He's the kind of player that our scouting team should have been good enough to know to pick up 2 years ago. You look at an Ivan Toney at Brentford. I'm not just Premier League bias or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, from players that see week in, week out, you've got to get there first. Otherwise, you're having to sign the ready-made product. And this is also a symptom of having put off the investment for so long, as we have done. We've signed stopgap after stopgap, is that when it comes to it, you essentially are we're going to have to pay up. We're going to have to pay up and take a risk on one of these guys and hope that it pays off. Of course, they'll get our full support. And I think anybody that we bring in from the list of names mentioned, and it could be somebody that hasn't been mentioned yet, will offer more than Giroud, in terms of open play and things like that. It won't all be end product based. But I do think people are now starting to realise that there's nobody that meets every single thing that we're after,
I'm going to throw a name out there. That is
Gabriel Jesus.
No, I would take it though.
Yes.
His hype has died down a lot this season, but his numbers are actually still up there. They're better than Xerxes. He's getting up in age. He's on the last year of his contract. He just turned 30.
Oh, wow.
Romelu Lukaku.
I knew where it was going. I didn't know he was that
old
though. Yeah.
I mean, he's 30 now. But he did score 14 goals under Mourinho this season, which is actually very impressive when you consider how attack negative Mourinho was, how he utilized him in the exact opposite way a player like Lukaku should be. You remember what he did at Inter. Yeah, it was a 2-striker formation, and we're seeing that the star of that was actually Lautaro. But that hold-up play with our wingers, I could see some damage. I wanted it last summer. It was offered. We passed because, I don't know, some moral superiority, high ground.
Yeah.
Maybe we go back in. He's got to be even cheaper now. He's going to be the cheapest option. And he's not going anywhere until the final, 2 weeks of the window. So,
yeah, I think So the obvious doubts with Lukaku is salary, because he's pretty well paid. I think Chelsea are covering some of his salary while he's on loan at Roma. In his age, I guess, like how long, because he's so based around the athletic side of his game, like how long until his body gives up, and as a result, the injuries that he's had. You know, him and Dybala have struggled to stay fit for large stretches this season. Otherwise, I think Roma would be a lock-in for top 4 by now. But he'd be available for, I think, a price that we could afford. I think I've seen Chelsea willing to sell for like 30, 35. So,
which is higher than he should be, to be honest.
Yeah, but he falls within our budget, and we've got
Mm-hmm.
good terms with. We're on good terms with Chelsea, so you think maybe we could work something out there. I'm not saying I'm all in favour of it. Like, there's a lot of risk. It's like the Conte thing, innit? I think we like the idea of it because of what it would mean and who it would upset and stuff, rather than perhaps necessarily the mould. But I like it. I don't have a name. I'll just keep riding with whoever Gazetta spit out next week. This is final one. Casey Cordray, what's up with Leao and his drop in form? I know opposing managers have figured out Pioli's tactics, but Leao has been wiped off the map in the past month. I want to expand on that and just say, do you think Leao's a bit fed up? Do you think, because the Sky report said he wants to stay and that he feels a lot of loyalty to the club and things like that? Obviously, he signed a long-term renewal last summer, but I just wonder at what point it's going to reach breaking point between him and the fans. You know, I know you said about maybe it was Pioli getting booed more so for bringing him off and stuff like that, but his body language at times to me is of a player that would happily leave if the right opportunity came up. You know,
I think that's just his body language, right? He always kind of carries himself like this, like swagged out guy, you know, like nothing bothers me. I'm the cool, tough guy. Like that's the walk I see when things aren't going his way. I think it's more of a facade than anything. Like I'm not too concerned with it. As for his drop in form, yeah, he hasn't put in a goal or assist in 3 games, but he actually did decently well against Inter. And then before that, assist, goal, and assist, goal for Portugal. Like he's been pretty good over the last month, actually. Like
could
it's
this
just
be
been the last 3 games. The last 2 were bad. And honestly, I think he could have got something in the Genoa game had he been given the full 90. The fact he didn't get it is the weird part to me. That's the part that doesn't make any sense because he's our best player, whether people want to admit it or not. He should be getting a full 90 because a guy like that is a difference maker. You see Ronaldo put in 4 out of 10 performances for 89 minutes and then scores a game winner, you know? And that's the type of people that you let play 90 no matter what. And Leao's one of those guys. So taking him off, unless he's hurt, it's weird, you know? You take him off when you're up 5-0, or you take him off if he's asking for a substitution. When it's at that point in the game, I believe we were down 2-1 to Genoa.
Yeah.
You leave your difference maker on.
Yeah.
Especially when you're bringing on more firepower, more dynamic players for the guy who's most static on the pitch. You swap Okafor with Giroud, and now you have those 2 guys who have great chemistry, play similar styles. They're both fast. They both love to counter. They will both love a pass on the break. Like, why would you not want them playing together? I just can't wrap my head around that. And
No.
I don't think the only way Leao leaves is if he's told that that's his new level, that's how we're going to utilize him. And I don't see that, especially if a Portuguese manager comes in.
I was going to say, is that a factor that might feed into us going for Conceição? Like, they haven't worked together before or anything like that.
Right.
They don't know each other inside out, and they're not mates or whatever. But you can't deny it.
Who Conceição is going to naturally gravitate towards.
Yeah.
And any manager is going to. Like I said, he's our best player, but compatriot, they speak the same language. That's going to be the first guy he approaches. We know that.
Yeah. Might look to bring in more Portuguese players as well, you know, with his knowledge of the league and whatnot. I think on a statistical level, you can't argue that this season has been a drop-off from Leao. Scudetto winning season when he was the MVP, and rightly so. He had 19 goal contributions in the league. Last season, he scored 15 and had 8 assists. This season, obviously, there's a few games to go yet, but he's got 7 goals, 8 assists in the league. So he's not even half of the tally that he was last season. I think what pisses people off is that he has gone missing in some of our biggest games. And I do believe that to be true. he did get an assist over the 2 legs against Roma, but it was for that late consolation for the Gabbia goal. We needed him. Aside from that, we needed him to be involved over both legs. He ghosted both legs against Roma, to be honest. The derby, it's another one without a goal for him. I say another one. He has scored goals in the derby in the past, but I just think he's the highest earner by a mile in the team, 7 mil net per season, including bonuses. I think he needs to do more to lead by example in the difficult moments. But also, maybe we're asking him to be something that he's not. Maybe he just isn't that guy. Maybe he's somebody that you build around in terms of his talent, but he will never be sort of the dressing room leader, that some of the other players might be in terms of more vocal leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he leaves either, because I think we've found ourselves in a strange situation where he's got a huge release clause and whatnot. I don't think any team is going to come in after the season that he's had and put 100 mil plus on the table, which is what it would probably take to bring us to the negotiating table. But I think under a new coach, I think he's a player that needs stimulus, and he needs to feel the energy, like positive energy and shit like that. I'm speaking cliches here, but I just think he needs to feel like everything's pulling in the right way, and that the team are playing through him. So maybe a new coach will help in that sense. But I do think we need to see more from him. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you to everybody for listening. Appreciate that, it's winding down towards the end of a forgettable season, but thank you honestly for those who tune in every single week and engage in the comments and stuff. Let us know what you think about the Conceição links, what you thought about the defensive disaster class against Genoa, and if you think we'll grab second. I've been your host, Oli Fisher. AJ, cheers for joining.
I'm always here.
Catch you later in the week for the bonus episode and for the next main episode next week.
Gol! Ancora Teo! È una meraviglia! Il gol di Teo Hernandez da un'area all'altra! È una meraviglia! Senti il mio cuore!